Hey everyone, welcome back to school this year. Mr. Nix asked me to create a brief Google training just to kind of refresh our memories on how to sign in and the features that we can use. I'm also going to show you some ideas to use Google Forms today as an assessment tool and also an easier way to collect data from your Google Forms by using Google add-ons. Several of you have taken a survey already to help me determine what add-ons you might be interested in, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first you're going to need your laptop, and everybody will need to be on the internet, and we're going to go to google.com. A lot of you sign in immediately into Classroom, which is okay, but to access the features that we're going to be doing today, which is not really involved in talking about Classroom, we just need to sign in on the Google website. You're going to go to the sign in button, and we're going to sign in with our Chilton BOE account. Your handle should be your first initial, middle initial, and your last name. And you need to enter in the password that we set up a couple of years ago. If you forgot your password, go ahead and click on Forgot Password. It will reset, send you an email to your alternative email, and it will get reset. So we're going to go ahead and get logged in. If you have any problems, just let me know. And we're going to go up here to the little dots to remind ourselves of what features we have. Here you've got access to most of the common things that we need for Google: Mail, Calendar, Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, and then the other things we probably don't necessarily use quite as much. Remember that your Google Mail, this is where if students send you something to review in Google Classroom or things like that, it is going to go to this mailbox. You can go to the mail icon, you can go to gmail.com, it is going to take you directly there, and you can see like Miss John shared a calendar with me this week. So this is the email to which all of those things come to. It's a good idea to check this email. I have this one on my phone. You can link it with your other email so you can kind of be sure to check them both and keep up with these emails so they don't kind of all pile in. Another thing that we're going to look at today too is the calendar briefly. Last year we used the calendar to sign up for the computers. We're going to have a school-wide calendar this year. You probably don't have an invitation to it yet, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a little peek at it. Month view, this is our back to school schedule. Today we are doing our training, and then things that are going to be scheduled for our school for the months of September, October, the rest of the school year are already on the calendar for us. So that'll be really helpful for us as we can look in advance and see the things that we've got going on. So let's go ahead and dive into the other things: Docs, Sheets, and Slides. A lot of you are familiar with how to use these programs. You know how to use them. One thing I really want to remind you of is the sharing feature. So I'm going to go to Docs, and I'm going to probably just pull up something that I've been working on. Anyway, 6th grade supply list. We worked on this last year. So things that are really beneficial when we're using this, and I did do this last year, you can see Miss Millard and I had a conversation, is that you can share this document, and you and all your grade level teachers or you and your team can all work on this one document, and you don't have to keep emailing it back and forth. Favorite feature of Google Docs. So to do this, you simply click on share. You enter in their name and their email address. You can see that I had already shared this with Miss Smith, Mr. Staggs, and Miss Millard, and Mr. Davis. So you can also go back in and edit. If you don't want them to be able to edit, if you just want them to be able to view, you can do that too. But I wanted all of their input on the supply list. So you could also send out a link as well. But don't forget, the next time you just type up something and you're going to attach an email and send it, maybe stop and think, hey, is this something we're going to edit and go back and forth on? Maybe we can just use this share feature. So really, really good thing that I wanted to make sure that we are implementing. Same way for Sheets and Slides. All works the same way. Going back to our dots, last basic thing I want to look at is make sure that we're all looking at our drive. So you'll go ahead and go to your Google Drive if you haven't been following me. Our Google Drive is like our giant USB that it goes with us everywhere you have internet access. It's awesome. I store everything on here. I worked really hard at the end of the year to put all of my files that were on my desktop in my Google Drive so I have access to them at all times. So with our board account, we have unlimited storage, which is nice. And it's there for us to use at no cost. So there's no reason not to be implementing this. Also, your lesson plans that we type up and send to Misty's Journette every week, they're saved here. There's a couple of mine right there. And they're also in another folder from Classroom from your class. That would be the 6th grade teachers folder. Here's all of my lesson plans from every week. So they're saved as a backup in Drive. So, this year, if you wanted to look back, hey, what did I type for that standard? You can go back and it's all right there. Sometimes when teachers share you things, though, you may not be able to go back and find it. One thing I want to point out is this shared with me feature. You can go back over here and you can see things that people have sent to you, like Miss Millard and I have been sharing some stuff, and then there's some other things whenever I kind of go back and forth. So if you can't find something somebody sent you that you maybe didn't save a copy of, it's probably going to be in that shared with me folder. So if anybody has any questions, I am more than happy to answer questions at this time about sharing and collaborating, about doc sheets and slides, the calendar, and logging into your email. If nobody else has any further questions, we will move on to Google Forms. All right, if everybody is still on their Drive page, there is an easy way to get to Google Forms from here. We go over to New, and this is also a feature I forgot to mention earlier about Google Drive, is where you can add a new folder and new files and uploads and things like that. However, moving on, you can also come down here to More, and you can create a new Google form. So we're going to go here. If you just log into Google, a lot of times what I'll do is I will just come to Google and I will type in Google Forms, and it is normally the second one because the first one has detailed information about Google Forms. So I always click on the second one, docs.google/forms, same homepage. Now you'll notice that this looks very, very similar to what the Docs homepage looks like. You've got several templates you can choose from. You can start a blank form. There's actually tons of templates, and many that have to do with education. Now, there's still not like sample or put in questions for there. You still have to kind of go in and tweak that a little bit, but it kind of gives you an idea of the layout. So we're just going to do we'll pick assessment for now. If you don't like the colorful background, that can all be changed by going to the color palette option. You can select a solid color or background, just personal preference. And it does have some sample questions built in to kind of guide you on how you want to set up and create your assessment. So number one thing you should always do when you create an assessment is have a question for the student's name. I repeat, the most important thing you have to do for an assessment is have a question for a student's name. It can come at the beginning or the end, but from personal experience, when I sent out my very first Google form quiz, I did not have a name. So whenever I got all their results, I did not know who had answered what. So most important thing is their name. Email's not 100% necessary. So if you see a question on here that you don't need, you can come down to click the trash can for delete. So a couple of features about the quiz questions. It says here, what is your first question? Well, this is just a template that we're following, but if you were making this from scratch on your own, you have lots of types of questions. You can do short answer paragraph, multiple choice. The check boxes would be select all that apply, drop down menu. The linear scale, if you're having them rate things, is also very good. If you took my survey for the needs assessment, all those things were on a linear scale. You can also add pictures for your questions by clicking on the picture icon, and you can upload or go to Google search to find pictures. That's a little bit time consuming, but still may be worth it, especially like if I was giving a quiz on the moon phases. So you can just type in your template. We'll do a sample math quiz, so I'll just for the time being say 5 plus 3. And you have to make sure you put in your answer choices. And as you can see here, you can remove, you can add more, so you can have 2, 4, 6, 12 different correct answers. And it does have the correct answer marked for you. Now, if you're not doing a template, this is not necessarily going to be marked, which is okay. I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. So you would just fill in your answer options 7, 8, 9, and 10. And another important thing to note down here is this required button. Required questions means that the kid has to mark your answer response. Not all questions may have to be marked, and this one is actually setting up an answer key for you. What I'm going to show you next is going to be if you have kind of a blank quiz, how we're going to use that add-on with that as well. So you can kind of continue on. This one has the check boxes, so you can have multiple answers that are correct, your short answer, and just by personal recommendation, the short answers, you may have to just go back in and individually grade those. There's not really a good, as you can probably assume, there's not a good grading scale because the students are all going to have a variation. Let's say that you didn't want to follow a template, that you wanted to do a custom quiz, which is what I normally do majority of the time. I'm going to go back to my home page and I'm going to click on blank. And we're just going to do a short, we're going to title it Math Quiz. Now, remember the very first question I advised you to always have is going to be a short answer question, and that is going to be, yes, what is the student's name? And that is required. They have to type in their name. So remember, you always want to start with that. The form description, this is where you could put any instructions. We could say, no, do your best, no calculators, things like that. So we have our name. Now we're going to put in a couple of questions. So this sidebar always stays with you. You're going to add a question. I'm going to leave it at multiple choice because I'm going to let this be a multiple choice test. And we'll do 3 times 4. Oh, it defaulted to short answer. We're going to go back to multiple choice. And I'm going to type in my answer options. I'm just going to do 3 for right now. So I'm going to continue on and do this a little bit more. We'll do 60 divided by 12. Want that to be multiple choice. 5, 10, 2. And one more. We'll do a basic adding. 75 plus 25. 100. 250. 0. I know some of my answers are crazy, but also I forgot to click required, so we want to go back and do required. One thing that also makes this simple to do too, if you're doing consistent multiple choice questions, you can click this duplicate button. It does copy your question, but it leaves all the settings the same. So if I wanted to do a last one, I could do 50 minus 32, and I could, put in my answers from there. Okay, so now we have our sample quiz made. You've got a couple of choices of things you can do first. First thing you want to do is make sure you've got it named. When I clicked on it, it automatically gave it the name of what my section was titled as. To send, you can send this to your students through email, which I don't suggest. What I do suggest is finding the link, and I shortened the URL. It doesn't really matter. And you can copy and paste this link into like your Google Classroom assignment, and it will take them straight to there. You can also embed the quiz, which means that the quiz will go on the same page that they're currently working on. That is just kind of a fancier way to do it. Most students should be able to click on the link and follow. So if you want to send it out to them, that's the best way. But let's talk about how we get results from this. So the first thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take your quiz. So we're going to go to preview, the little I, and we're going to take our quiz. And we want to take it correctly. So I'm going to type in my name. I can actually do answer key because this is what answer key is going to be. 12, 5, 118. And submit. Okay, it's been submitted. Now, here is what we want to go back to do. You can see I have 2 tabs. I'm going to close out of that tab. And now, back where we created it, I have 1 response. Now, obviously, when you send this out to your students, you need to give them a deadline to have this done. So what you're going to do is let them get all their responses, and then we're going to have there's a green icon right here. This icon indicates that you want to send all of these responses to Excel. Once you have several responses, it will say, it just lists them all here, and it doesn't tell you individually who scored what. So we want to create a spreadsheet. We want to create a new one, create, and it automatically takes us into a Google Sheet. So it's very efficient at setting it all up for you. You do not have to do any of this. I clicked one button, it did all of this for me, okay? So now we're going to briefly step away from this and we're going to talk about add-ons for a second. You can think of Google add-ons as being like adding an app to your phone. If you wanted to track the number of steps you took each day, you would find a step tracker app and you would enter in your information. It would keep up with that data for you. It just kind of enhances your device to make it a little bit better. Well, add-ons are kind of like apps for your Google Docs and spreadsheets. They can just enhance things to make them better. I've pulled up a blank spreadsheet and a blank document to kind of give you an idea of some add-ons that I've added for those two types of programs. The add-on we're going to feature when we go back to our Google quiz in a minute is Flubaroo, but I'm going to show you how to get add-ons. So across the toolbar, you've got add-ons, get add-ons, and it looks pretty much like the App Store, and there are dozens of things that you can go through. You can sort them by category, education, business tools, utilities. Here's Flubaroo right here. It looks like for the sheets, you could have table styles, split names. I mean, there's all sorts of things that I haven't even begun to even explore what everything would be. So attendance sorter, that looks like it could be something that could be useful. So in order to get an add-on, you would just click on the free button. We can add it. It doesn't matter at this point. It'll double check the account that you want to put it on, and it'll ask for permissions. And then normally you can go back to the add-ons and you can do some type of little tutorial, and you can do a help sheet or things like that. Over on Docs, there's a couple of other different add-ons. For example, things that I've used are the Bibliography Creator. This would be excellent if you were beginning to teach students how to create a bibliography. I've used it personally. It's very simple. There's also a signature app where you can draw your signature using your finger or your mouse, and you could sign documents electronically. That would be really cool to use if you were having to send out a lot of electronic emails. So the same way, get add-ons. There are probably some that overlap, as you can see, and then some that are different. There's highlighting tools. That would be a really good skill for your students. But depending on if you're in Docs or Sheets, they've got apps that are more specific to those areas. So I wanted to introduce those to you, and feel free to explore and look around with those things, because at the end of this professional development, you are going to need to know how to get back to this. Okay, now we're back on our quiz. As you can see, I have gone in and I've added a couple of other responses, and I did that so you can kind of see how the grading part works with multiple students. So I know that you may not have done this step, so you can just kind of follow along, and you won't have to do this every time because your students will be the one taking the assessment. So one thing that I do want to go back and show you is that now that I have multiple ones in there, I want to show you what it kind of looks like for data collection purposes. For example, under this summary tab, you can see that 75% of the students who took the test got the question correct. However, you do need to consider that your answer key is part of that 75. So the data may be a little bit skewed because of this. If you having an answer key is necessary to use the Flubaroo add-on, but you don't always have to use the answer key. If you just wanted to simply give out a informal little quiz to see who's got it, who doesn't, this would still work for that purpose. So that's a really good thing. You can click through and see individual responses. Like, for example, here's the answer key and here's how I did. However, if you have a class of 25 students, you may not want to click through this 25 times or print 25 responses off. You can delete a response. So if someone absolutely bombed it and you want them to go back and redo it, you could do that as well. So I've clicked my little export button to review this in Sheets. It's pulled up in Sheets. It's got my names, when they took it, which is also really helpful for you to know as well, and the questions. So we're going to go to add-ons. I've already added Flubaroo, so I'm going to enable Flubaroo in this sheet. So what it's going to do is it just kind of comes up. It tells you that it's now going to be part of this sheet. It gives you instructions for how to grade. So there's a demo video, and most add-ons are going to have some type of instruction that you can go and watch to help you learn how to use it. So right now, it doesn't look like anything has changed, and that's true. You've got to go back to the add-ons tab and go to Flubaroo and tell it what you want it to do. The number one thing we are asking this add-on to do is grade the assignment. There are some advanced things that you could do, such as print the grades, expand the formulas, but those are a little bit more technical. Right now, we just want to grade. So we're going to grade the assignment, and you're wondering, how in the world is it going to know who to do what? Well, the first thing you've got to do is it wants you to make sure that how it's going to grade each thing. So, for example, if every question should have been 25 points, you need to change this. It can't up to 25, but if each question should have been more points than 1, you can change that there. You can also skip a student, or you can select to go back and grade by hand. That would be where those discussion questions come in handy right there. And then Flubaroo does a really good job of always recognizing that the name question is the one that's the identifier. So you've got some grading options. It gives you a lot of flexibility. I think that, if you're going to use this, it does take a little bit more prep work on the front end, but in the end, it saves you from doing this 25, or if you've got 3 or 4 classes, 75 to 100 times. So we're going to continue to the next step. The reason why we had to do an answer key is because you have to select which one is going to be the compare to answers. Now, if you've got a student that, if you maybe want to look at the first students and be like, oh, well, Johnny got them all correct. Everybody's can be graded to Johnny's. That's fine. I always choose to do the answer key. So you're going to select the answer key and continue. And now what Flubaroo is doing is that it's creating a new tab down here at the bottom. So you can always go back to your original submissions, and then you've got a new window for the grades. It kind of tells you that it's been graded, and it has a little tip for you. So then now on this new sheet, it tells you the average, and it gives a percentage for every student. It also, and this is their total percent correct, it also goes back and tells you the percent correct for each question. And it even has the questions marked where less than half of the students who participated in the quiz failed that question. So, you may want to go back and be like, did I really do a good enough job? Is that really a fair and valid question that, really assess their learning the best? Or do we just not understand that? We all need to go back and review it. So this worksheet right here gives you a lot of information in a very small piece of paper. So in my opinion, this is something that would be great to bring to data meetings. Even if you just did a quick little every 4.5 weeks progress report assessment, this would be something great to keep in your file so that you could be monitoring progress of your students. And the thing about it is that while you do take the time to set up the assessment, but Flubaroo calculates all of this data for you. So that's just one example of an add-on. There's, like I said, there are several others that could be used to make our lives a little bit easier, which is what we're going to talk about in just a moment. If you have questions about using Flubaroo, I'm happy to go back over any of the steps. Once again, this is a new sheet. You can always go back and you can look at the submissions. And sometimes even just compiling all of the submissions right here on one thing to look at instead of having to flip through a bunch of papers is still more ideal to look at and then grade than a bunch of different quizzes. So I really like how it organizes all the data for us. Now it's time to see what you've learned. I would like for everybody to please make sure that you're logged onto the internet still with your laptop, and please access Google Forms. In order to make sure that you understand how to use Google Forms, I would like for all of us to create a back-to-school survey to get to know our students better when they return next week. Here in Google Forms, remember that you may choose any template from the template gallery, or you may create your own blank Google form. You may name your quiz anything like getting to know you or back-to-school survey. Please include a minimum of 5 questions to send out to your students. And I would like for you to, when you get finished, to send your survey to me at my email address so that I can make sure that all things are properly enabled in your survey and that you really understand how to use Google Forms. Thank you and good luck.